The rain hadn't stopped all night. It ran down the grand marble steps of the Rossi estate, glistening under the golden lights like tears. Inside, the air smelled of money, whiskey, and fear. Sophia Bennett stood at the edge of the room, fingers clutching the strap of her mother's old purse, heart pounding so loud she could barely hear the low murmur of men's voices. She shouldn't have been there. Not in this place, not facing the man they called Il Diavolo. Luca Rossi, the youngest and most ruthless mafia boss in New York. He sat behind a mahogany desk, sleeves rolled up, dark hair slicked back, eyes like winter, cold, sharp, unreadable. When he looked up at her, she felt like he saw everything. Her fear, her pride, her desperation. "Miss Bennett," he said slowly, his voice a calm danger. "You came to plead for your father." She nodded, throat tight. "He made a mistake. He'll pay it back. Every cent." Luca's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "He owes me $2 million. He can't even afford his own lawyer." Sophia swallowed hard. "I'll find a way. Just give me time." He rose from his chair. Tall, composed, the kind of man who didn't need to raise his voice to make the room bow. He walked around the desk, stopping close enough that she could smell the faint scent of his cologne. Cedar, smoke, and something darker. "I don't deal in time," he said softly. "I deal in guarantees." Her brows furrowed. "What do you mean?" He studied her, the trembling girl standing in his office, eyes too pure for his world. Then he said it like a verdict. "Marry me." The words didn't register at first. She blinked. "What?" "I'll clear your father's debt. In return, you'll be my wife." Her mouth went dry. Why me?" He tilted his head slightly, eyes narrowing. "Because you don't belong here, and that makes you useful." Sophia's pulse hammered. "Useful how?" Luca turned back to the window, rain streaking the glass like shadows. "I need a wife to stabilize an alliance. Someone untouched by the business, innocent, believable." "You're perfect." The word innocent burned her cheeks. "You want a deal, not a marriage." He looked over his shoulder, that faint smile returning. "Everything in my world is a deal." She shook her head, backing away. "No. I can't. Your father has 72 hours before I collect what's mine." Her breath hitched. "You wouldn't." "I would." His tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. "You have a choice, Miss Bennett. Save him, or walk away." Sophia stared at him, tears threatening. The rain outside turned to thunder, echoing the war inside her chest. When she finally spoke, her voice broke. "You're a monster." Luca's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. "Yes," he said quietly, "but I'm the monster who can save your family." The clock ticked between them, the sound of time running out. And as lightning flashed, Sophia realized her life had just changed forever. The wedding came 3 days later. It wasn't white dresses and violins. It was ink on, a signature made in silence, and a ring that fit a little too tightly on Sophia's trembling hand. The ceremony took place in the private chapel of the Rossi estate. The pews were empty except for 2 witnesses and a priest who never looked her in the eye. Candles flickered against marble saints. Rain tapped against stained glass like a warning. Luca stood beside her in a tailored black suit, expression carved from ice. When he said "I do," his voice was steady, practiced. When she whispered it back, hers almost vanished in the sound of thunder. Afterward, the priest left quickly, as if afraid the devil might ask for confession. That night, the mansion was alive with shadows. Guards moved through corridors. Servants avoided eye contact. Everywhere Sophia looked, there were secrets hiding behind locked doors. Luca showed her to a suite large enough to swallow her entire apartment. The walls were ivory, the furniture dark mahogany, the air heavy with roses she hadn't asked for. "You'll be safe here," he said. "Safe," she repeated softly, glancing at the guards posted outside the door. "That's what you call this?" He turned toward her, eyes sharp. "In my world, safety and freedom rarely exist together." Something in his tone made her stop. For a heartbeat, she thought she saw weariness. Not power, not cruelty, but the echo of a man who hadn't slept peacefully in years. She lifted her chin. You don't have to keep me locked up. I'm not your prisoner. He hesitated, then looked away. No, he said quietly. You're my wife. The words should have sounded comforting. Instead, they felt like a vow made at a graveside. Days passed. She learned the rhythms of the mansion. The 6 a.m. phone calls that ended in arguments. The dinners that tasted of silence. The occasional flicker of humor from the man who ruled the criminal underworld but couldn't remember how to smile. Every evening, Luca returned from his office with blood on his knuckles or secrets in his eyes. Every evening, Sophia tried not to ask. But one night she did. You said this marriage was business, she said, standing by the window. Then why keep me here? Why act like it's something more? He poured himself a drink, amber liquid catching the light. Because deals end. I can't afford this one too. She studied him, the hard lines, the guarded voice. And what happens when your business is finished? When you don't need me anymore? His gaze lifted, holding hers. That, he said softly, is what I'm afraid to find out. Later, when she was alone, Sophia walked out onto the balcony. The city stretched far below, glittering and dangerous. The wind carried the faint scent of rain and smoke, the two things she'd come to associate with him. She touched the ring on her finger, cold against her skin. Somewhere inside this mansion was the man everyone feared. But somewhere, hidden deeper, she thought she could hear the heart he'd forgotten he had. And maybe, just maybe, that was what scared him most of all. The mansion was never silent. Even at night, it breathed doors closing softly in distant corridors. The faint hum of security systems, the quiet murmur of men standing watch outside. Sophia had stopped counting the days since the wedding. Each one blurred into the next. Morning coffee served on silver trays, news reports she wasn't allowed to read, and dinners that ended with Luca's phone vibrating and his chair empty before dessert. But lately something had changed. He lingered, asked about her father's health. Sometimes, when he thought she wasn't looking, his expression softened. Not much, but enough to make her wonder. It was that curiosity that led her to the library one night. Rain whispered against the tall windows. The shelves stretched high, filled with books that smelled of dust and old money. She was looking for something to pass the hours when her hand brushed against a photograph half hidden behind a row of ledgers. It was old, edges frayed. A younger Luca stood beside a man she didn't recognize, smiling. The smile stopped her. She'd never seen him look like that. You shouldn't be in here. The voice behind her was quiet but firm. Sophia turned, the photograph still in her hand. One of Luca's men stood in the doorway, dark suit, unreadable face. I was just looking for a book. His gaze dropped to the photo. Put that back, Mrs. Rossi. Something in his tone chilled her. Who is he? She asked softly. Someone the boss doesn't talk about. He stepped forward, took the picture gently from her hand, and replaced it on the shelf. For a moment, she thought he might say more, but he only shook his head. Sometimes it's safer not to ask questions. Rough night? She asked. He poured himself a drink. Every night's rough in this business. She hesitated, then said, I found a photograph. In the library. You and another man. His hand stilled around the glass. He's gone, Luca said finally. He was my brother. She turned toward him. What happened? Pause long, heavy. Then, he trusted the wrong people. Paid the price. His voice was steady, but his eyes had that same storm she'd seen before. The one he kept hidden behind control. Sophia stood, crossing the distance between them. You blame yourself. He looked up, startled by how simply she'd said it. For a heartbeat he almost smiled. You see too much. Maybe you let me. That drew an actual smile, small, quiet, and gone too quickly. Go to bed, Sophia, he said softly. You shouldn't stay awake with ghosts. But as she lay back, she couldn't stop thinking about the look on his face. Not the boss, not the devil, but a man haunted by the one thing power couldn't fix. And that night, for the first time, She realized there was more danger in his pain than in his guns. Morning sunlight cut through the curtains like thin blades of gold. For a brief moment, Sophia could almost pretend the world outside the Rossi mansion didn't exist. No debts, no danger, no bargains. Just coffee, the scent of rain on the terrace, and the strange quiet of a man trying to be something he wasn't. Luca sat across from her at breakfast, reading the paper. He'd begun having his meals with her more often, a silent truce they both pretended not to notice. "Another late night?" she asked, breaking the silence. He looked up over the edge of the paper. "You keeping track now?" "Hard not to," she said. "You come home looking like you've fought a war." He gave a short, humorless laugh. "Sometimes I do." Before she could answer, his phone buzzed on the table. One glance at the screen, and his entire expression changed. Calm replaced by cold, sharp focus. He stood. "I have to take this." Sophia watched him step into the hall, voice low but urgent. Through the open doorway she caught fragments of the conversation. Names she didn't know, something about a leak, and the Morales deal. When he came back, his jaw was set like stone. "Stay inside today," he said quietly. "Luca. Don't argue. Promise me." She nodded, unsettled by the rare flicker of fear in his eyes. By afternoon, the mansion felt different. Tension hummed through the walls. Extra guards appeared. The hum of radios replaced the usual silence. Sophia tried to distract herself, wandering into the garden with a book. The sun was warm, the roses heavy with dew. Peaceful, almost enough to forget, until a voice broke the quiet. "Mrs. Rossi?" She turned. It was one of the newer guards, someone she didn't recognize well. His uniform looked right, but something about his smile was wrong. Too sharp. "Yes," she said cautiously. "The boss sent me. Said you should come inside, quickly." But when she glanced toward the house, she saw no one at the door. The air suddenly felt too still. "I think I'll wait here," she said. He took a step closer. "Mom, I insist." Before he could finish, another voice cut through the garden, low and dangerous. "Step back." Luca's tone could have frozen fire. He came from behind the hedge, gun drawn, 3 of his men right behind him. The false guard paled. "Boss, Luca didn't let him finish. "You're not my man." The imposter bolted toward the gate, but didn't make it far. 2 of Luca's men tackled him before he reached the road. Sophia stood frozen, pulse racing. Luca crossed the distance to her, holstering his gun, hands trembling slightly when he reached her. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, voice thin. "Who was he?" "A ghost from the past," Luca muttered. "Someone who thinks hurting you will hurt me." Her stomach turned cold. "Why me?" He looked at her then, really looked. "Because they know I'd burn the world before I let that happen." The words hit harder than the danger. He turned to his men. "Double security. No one leaves, no one enters." When they were alone again, he touched her shoulder, gentler now. "You see why I can't let you go?" Sophia met his eyes, saw the fear behind the steel. "And you see why I can't keep living like this?" Neither spoke again. The space between them pulsed with everything unspoken. Fear, anger, something that felt too close to love. And somewhere beyond the gates, the past watched and waited. The city blurred past in streaks of light. Luca's car cut through the rain like a shadow, tires hissing on wet asphalt. Sophia sat beside him, seatbelt tight across her chest, fingers locked together. Neither of them spoke. The only sound was the storm outside and the low growl of the engine. They drove for hours, leaving the skyscrapers behind until only pine trees and fog remained. At last, a narrow road curved toward an old stone villa perched above a lake. The headlights swept across ivy-covered walls, glass cracked from weather and time. Luca killed the engine. "No one knows this place," he said. "We'll be safe here for a while." Safe. The word felt fragile now. Inside, the air smelled of dust and rain. He moved through the rooms, checking windows, testing locks, his gun never far from reach. Sophia lit the old fireplace, her hands shaking. When the flames caught, the light softened the hard edges of the room. and of him. "You've done this before," she said quietly. "Hiding." He gave a short smile. "More times than I want to remember." She hesitated, then asked, "Does it ever stop? The running, the fighting?" He looked into the fire. "Not until someone wins." A pause. "Or quits." Something in his voice, tired, almost human, made her chest tighten. He wasn't invincible. He was exhausted. A man made of scars, not stone. Hours later, thunder rolled over the hills. The storm outside matched the one inside her. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the garden, the gun, the fear that had lived in his eyes. When she rose to add wood to the fire, she found him on the terrace, standing in the rain, shirt clinging to his skin. "You'll freeze," she called. He didn't turn. "I can't stay still when the world's hunting me." She stepped beside him anyway, rain cold on her face. "Then let me stand with you." For the first time, he looked at her. Not the bargain, not the burden, but the woman who'd chosen to stay when she could have run. Something in him gave way. He reached up, brushed a strand of wet hair from her cheek. "Every wall I build," he said softly, "you find a door through." She didn't speak. She just stood there with him while the storm raged, two silhouettes against lightning. Neither safe, neither certain, but no longer alone. By dawn, the rain had stopped. Luca sat by the fire, half asleep. Sophia brought him coffee, their hands brushing for the first time without fear. Outside, mist curled over the lake. Inside, silence settled, fragile, almost peaceful. The world hadn't found them yet, but for one stolen morning it felt like it never would. He looked at her, eyes tired, voice raw. "He didn't just betray the family, Sophia. He betrayed me. I covered for him for years. Every deal gone wrong, every lie. I thought I could fix him. Then one day he sold information that got our father killed. And he sent me a message after, 'Now you're free.'" Sophia's heart ached at the sound of that. Not for Matteo, not even for the father he'd lost, but for the wound that had never healed. Before she could speak, a loud bang shattered the night. Glass rained from the upstairs window. Luca grabbed her, pulling her behind the heavy oak table. "Get down!" Gunfire echoed outside. Shouts, the distant roar of engines. Sophia's pulse hammered. "He's here." Luca's voice was ice. "He's here." He pressed a gun into her trembling hand. "If anyone comes through that door but me, you shoot." Then he was gone. The next minutes felt like hours. Sophia crouched by the fire, every sound amplified. Footsteps above, splintering wood, shouting. Then silence. And then a voice. Soft. Familiar. "Sophia." She froze. The voice came from the hall, calm, smooth, wrong. "Don't be afraid," the man said. "I'm Matteo. I just want to talk." Her blood turned to ice. He stepped into the doorway, tall, sharp-featured, the same dark eyes as Luca but colder, a ghost wearing his brother's face. "Now I see why he's fighting so hard," Matteo murmured, gaze lingering on her. "You're not what I expected." Sophia gripped the gun tighter. "Stay back." He raised his hands, almost amused. "You think I'm the monster in this story? Maybe, but I'm the one telling the truth." Footsteps pounded on the stairs. Luca's voice, shouting her name. Matteo smiled. "Careful, brother," he called out. "You might hit your wife." When Luca appeared, gun raised, the room felt like a single held breath. Two brothers, one wound, and Sophia standing between them. For a moment, time itself seemed to stop. The air in the villa was heavy with gunpowder and memory. Two brothers standing inches apart, the ghost of blood and betrayal between them. And Sophia, caught in the crossfire of both their pasts. Rain tapped softly against the shattered window, a cruel rhythm to match the stillness inside. "Put the gun down, Luca," Matteo said calmly, his hands half raised. "You've aimed it at me before. You couldn't pull the trigger then either." "This time's different," Luca growled. Sophia's voice trembled. "Stop it, both of you. Just talk." but neither seemed to hear her. Years of hatred crackled between them, raw and electric. "You killed our father," Luca hissed. "You sold him out for money and power." Matteo laughed. Not cruelly, but hollow, tired. "You really believe that? You confessed in the message you sent me." "I confessed to freeing you," Matteo snapped. "You were chained to his shadow, Luca. You did everything he said, bled for his empire, never questioned a thing. I didn't kill him. I stopped him from killing you." Luca froze. "You're lying." Sofia looked from one to the other, her pulse pounding. "What are you talking about?" Matteo turned toward her. "Ask your husband why he really took over the family, Sofia. Ask him why he never talks about that night." Luca's eyes hardened. "Don't." She faced him, voice shaking. "Tell me." He was silent for too long. Then, in a low, broken whisper, "I pulled the trigger." The words hung in the air, unreal. Matteo exhaled. "He was going to shoot me. I tried to stop him. But Luca—" "Stop!" Luca's voice cracked. "He's twisting it. Our father was going to destroy everything. He wanted another war. I did what I had to." Sofia's heart ached. "And you've carried it alone all this time." Luca's expression was raw. Not the mafia boss, not the feared Rossi patriarch, but a man drowning in guilt he'd buried under power. Matteo lowered his hands slowly. "You think I hated you for it, brother? Pitted you. That's why I left. That's why I stayed gone, until now. Then why come back?" Matteo's gaze flicked to Sofia. "Because she deserves to know the truth. You made her part of this mess, and she deserves a choice." The storm outside roared, shaking the old walls. Sofia's voice was soft, but steady. "And what choice is that?" Matteo looked at her, eyes weary, almost pleading. "Come with me. Leave him. I can protect you, keep you out of the war that's coming. You don't owe him your life, Sofia." Luca's voice broke through, rough and desperate. "Don't listen to him. He's manipulating you like he did everyone else. 2 men, 2 truths, 1 impossible decision." Sofia felt her world tilting. Everything she thought she knew about Luca, their marriage, their fragile peace, suddenly unstable. She stepped forward, standing between them again. "I don't know who to believe," she whispered. "All I know is that I'm done being the prize in someone else's war." She reached out, gently lowering Luca's gun. "You both want to protect me? Then stop destroying each other first." Neither spoke, but something in her words, or maybe the exhaustion in her eyes, finally broke the spell. Matteo dropped his gaze. "You've become stronger than either of us." He turned toward the open door, rain pouring in from the storm. "This isn't over, Luca. But for tonight, no more blood." He disappeared into the night. When the echoes of his footsteps faded, Luca sank into a chair, head in his hands. Sofia knelt beside him. "You should have told me," she whispered. He looked up, eyes full of regret. "I thought I could protect you by hiding the truth." She touched his face gently. "The truth doesn't destroy people, Luca. Lies do." For the first time, he didn't argue. He just took her hand and held it, as if it was the only thing keeping him from falling apart. Outside, the storm began to quiet. But inside, the reckoning had only just begun. The next morning dawned gray, a hesitant light that turned the lake to silver glass. The villa, once a sanctuary, now felt like a cage filled with ghosts. Sofia stood by the window, watching fog curl along the water. Her reflection stared back at her. Calm on the surface, chaos underneath. Behind her, Luca moved quietly through the room, packing a pistol into a leather case. His movements were deliberate, but his mind was miles away. "He's not gone, is he?" she asked. He paused. "No." She turned. "Then why let him walk away?" "Because killing him last night would have been easy," Luca said. "And easy things have consequences I can't afford anymore." He looked up, eyes tired, older somehow. "I'm trying to make peace, Sofia. For you. For whatever this is between us." Sofia's chest tightened. "Peace doesn't mean silence, Luca. It means telling me the truth before someone else does." He smiled faintly, bitterly. That's not peace. That's surrender. By midday, news reached them through Luca's men. Matteo had reappeared in Milan. He wasn't hiding. He was moving openly, gathering allies among the Rossi family's old enemies. Luca listened to the report in the study, the fireplace throwing restless shadows across his face. So he wants a war, he murmured. Marco, his most trusted lieutenant, nodded grimly. And he's winning hearts. Some of your father's men believe he's the rightful heir. Luca's jaw clenched. They've forgotten who bled for this family. Sophia, standing in the doorway, said softly, or maybe they remember too much. Marco glanced at her, surprised she'd spoken. Luca didn't answer, but his silence said everything. That evening, the house filled with movement again. Guards checking weapons. Maps spread across the dining table. Plans whispered like prayers. Sophia watched it all unfold from the corner of the room. She didn't belong to this world. Not the guns, not the power, not the men who'd traded pieces of their souls for loyalty. And yet, she was the reason Luca had stayed human this long. When the others left, she approached him quietly. You can stop this before it starts. He looked up, weary but sharp. And let Matteo take everything? Maybe it's not about winning, she said. Maybe it's about surviving. Luca stood, closing the space between them. I've spent my whole life surviving, Sophia. But for the first time, I actually have something to lose. Her heart stuttered. Me? His voice softened. Everything that comes with you. For a moment, the world shrank to that, her breath, his heartbeat, the storm gathering somewhere far away. Later that night, thunder rolled again. But this time it wasn't the weather. An explosion ripped through the far edge of the property, the sound deep and violent. Sophia ran to the window just in time to see flames rising near the gates. Shouts followed. Gunfire cracked through the night. Luca was already moving, barking orders into his radio. Get her to the basement now. But Sophia grabbed his arm. You can't go out there. He turned, cupping her face briefly, his touch fierce and fleeting. If I don't, there won't be a home left to hide in. Then he was gone, swallowed by the smoke and fire. Minutes stretched like hours. Sophia crouched in the shelter below the villa, hands shaking. Each gunshot above felt like a heartbeat too close. When the noise finally died, she climbed back up the narrow stairs, ignoring the guards' protests. The hallway smelled of smoke and gunpowder. Windows shattered, walls scorched. And then she saw him. Luca stood in the center of the chaos, coat torn, face streaked with soot. He was alive barely, but in his eyes, she saw something new. Not fear, not anger, resolve. He sent a message, Luca said quietly, staring out at the burning gates. Matteo won't stop until I'm gone. Or until you are. Sophia's voice broke. Then what do we do? He looked back at her, and this time, the man before her wasn't the cold boss or the broken son. He was something in between. Something human. We end this, he said. Together. The fire at the gates had burned out by dawn, leaving behind the scent of ash and iron. The once beautiful villa now looked like a battlefield. Bullet holes in the walls, glass glittering on the marble floor like fallen stars. Sophia sat on the edge of the couch, wrapped in a blanket, her eyes fixed on the horizon. Every breath she took felt heavy with smoke and unspoken fear. Luca stood near the window, bruised, blood at the corner of his mouth. He hadn't slept. His men came and went, murmuring updates, but she could tell he wasn't really listening. He was somewhere else, deep inside a decision that would change everything. At last he turned to her. He wants me to come to him. Sophia frowned. Matteo? Luca nodded. He sent a message after the attack. No more soldiers. No more ambushes. Just the two of us. Her heart lurched. You can't go. It's a trap. Maybe, he said quietly. But maybe it's the only way this ends without you getting hurt. Sophia stood. You think I'll just wait here while you throw yourself at your past? No. If this is the end, I'm standing beside you. Luca's eyes met hers. Steady, dark, and full of something that had no name. Sophia. No, she said, voice shaking. You told me we'd end this together. Don't take that back now. He exhaled slowly, then nodded. Then we finish it together. They left before sunrise. The city was waking when their car rolled into the abandoned warehouse district, where the Rossi Empire had begun, and where, perhaps, it would end. The air smelled of rust and rain. Shadows moved in the broken windows above. Luca's hand brushed Sophia's as they stepped inside. Stay behind me, he murmured. But Matteo was already waiting. He stood under a single hanging light, calm, unarmed, like a ghost that had been expecting this meeting all along. Brother, Matteo said softly. You came. Luca's voice was low. You left me no choice. Sophia's heart hammered as the two men faced each other. Mirrors of pain and pride, bound by blood and betrayal. Matteo took a slow step forward. You still don't understand, do you? Father's death wasn't your sin, Luca. It was his design. He wanted one of us to become the monster he couldn't stop being. I became him to destroy him, Luca snapped. And you succeeded. Matteo's eyes flicked toward Sophia. But now you've built a kingdom on the same foundation: fear, lies, violence. You think she'll save you from it? Luca didn't answer. His silence was enough. Sophia stepped forward, her voice trembling but clear. No one here is innocent. But if you keep fighting, all that's left will be ashes. Matteo smiled sadly. Ashes are all we ever had. Then movement, the faint click of a gun's safety, echoing in the stillness. Luca's men, Matteo's men, emerging from the shadows, weapons raised. The brothers had both lied. There would be no peace. Luca grabbed Sophia's hand, pulling her behind a column as bullets shattered the quiet. The air filled with smoke, screams, and chaos. She could barely see through the haze. Somewhere across the floor, she heard Luca shout Matteo's name. Then silence again. When the smoke cleared, Matteo stood a few feet away, gun in hand, bleeding from his shoulder. Luca, breathing hard, aimed at him, but his hand trembled. You can end this, Matteo yelled. Go on, do it. Be the man father wanted. Sophia ran forward. Luca, don't. He froze, caught between vengeance and something greater. The gun slipped from his hand, clattering to the floor. Luca took a slow step toward his brother. No more. I'm done letting the dead rule the living. Matteo stared at him, disbelief, then something close to sorrow. You're still my brother, Luca said quietly. Even if I can't forgive you. Matteo's voice cracked. Then maybe that's enough. He lowered his gun. The room fell silent except for the rain beginning to fall outside, steady and soft. Later, when the authorities arrived, a rare alliance between Luca's men and the law he'd once defied. The brothers were separated. Matteo was taken away, bleeding but alive. Luca stood at the edge of the street, watching him disappear into the back of a black van. Sophia came to stand beside him. You could have killed him. He shook his head. Killing him would have kept me his prisoner. Letting him live, that's my freedom. She reached for his hand. So what happens now? Luca looked toward the rising sun over the city, a city that had once feared his name. Now, he said softly, we start over. And when he turned to her, the man who once ruled through power and fear finally looked like something else. Someone who had chosen love over blood. The Tuscan countryside glowed gold beneath the early morning sun. Dew shimmered on the fields, and the air carried that delicate hush that only existed at the start of a new day. Sophia stood on the balcony of their new villa. Smaller, quieter, nothing like the marble fortress they once called home. This house was made of light and laughter, not secrets and walls. She placed a tray of coffee and fresh pastries on the table, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. Behind her, she heard small feet pattering against the wooden floor. Mama! Papa said I can feed the horses. Sophia turned, smiling. Little Leo, all curls and boundless energy, ran up to her, sunlight catching the dimple in his cheek. Luca followed behind, barefoot, a towel slung over his shoulder, his usual dark suits replaced with a white shirt unbuttoned at the collar. "I said you can help feed them," Luca corrected gently, his voice lighter than she'd ever known it. Leo grinned up at him. "That means I do the carrots, right?" Luca smirked, then caught Sophia's gaze over their son's head. There it was again, that look that said everything without needing words. "Yes," Luca murmured. "You do the carrots." Leo cheered and dashed out toward the stables, the sound of his laughter spilling into the soft morning air. Sophia stepped closer to Luca, resting her head against his chest. For a long moment they just stood there, no chaos, no gunfire, no shadows. Only peace. "You kept your promise," she whispered. He tilted her chin up. "Which one?" "The one where you said we'd start over. That there'd be a day when we didn't have to look over our shoulders anymore." Luca smiled faintly, that quiet, rare smile that still made her heart skip. "I meant it. You gave me something worth fighting for, Sophia. And this time, I didn't lose." She reached up, tracing the faint scar on his jaw, a reminder of how close they'd come to losing everything. "You didn't just win, Luca," she said softly. "You changed." He took her hand and pressed it to his lips. "You made me want to." The bells from the nearby village chimed, echoing over the hills. Birds rose in a flutter of wings. Somewhere in the distance, Leo's laughter mixed with the sound of hooves and wind. Sophia leaned against the railing, watching her family below. Her son running through sunlight, the man she once thought she'd never trust again standing by his side. "This," she murmured, "this is what peace looks like." Luca slipped his arm around her waist. "No, amore. This is what forever looks like." She turned toward him and kissed him slow and deep as the morning light broke fully over them. For the first time in years, the past stayed where it belonged. The world ahead was wide open, and theirs. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to leave us a comment. Also like, share and subscribe to our channel, and click on the notification bell to get notified when a new story comes up.